Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are exploring the incredible history of the Lincoln Wheat Penny, one of the most famous, widely collected, and historically important coins ever produced in the United States. For generations, Americans carried wheat pennies in their pockets, saved them in jars, inherited them from grandparents, and searched through old collections hoping to discover rare coins worth thousands of dollars. Yet behind this small copper coin lies a fascinating story involving presidential history, American pride, rare mint errors, economic change, world wars, and some of the most valuable pennies ever discovered. The story of the Lincoln Wheat Penny officially began in 1909 during one of the most important anniversaries in American history. That year marked the 100th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln, one of America's most admired presidents. Lincoln became famous for leading the country during the Civil War and helping abolish slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation. Because of his importance in American history, the United States government decided to honor him with a new 1-cent coin. This decision became historic because the Lincoln cent was the first regular circulating American coin to feature the portrait of an actual president. Before 1909, American coins usually displayed symbolic figures such as Lady Liberty rather than real people. The new Lincoln cent therefore marked a major turning point in the design of American currency. The coin was designed by sculptor Victor David Brenner, whose portrait of Lincoln became one of the most recognized images in numismatic history. On the obverse side, Lincoln faces right with the words "I and God we trust" above his head, liberty to the side, and the date below. The reverse side displayed two wheat stalks surrounding the words 1 cent and United States of America, giving the coin its famous nickname, the Wheat Penny. The wheat design symbolized American agriculture, prosperity, and national strength during the early 20th century. When the first Lincoln Wheat Pennies entered circulation in 1909, they immediately attracted enormous public attention because many Americans were excited to see a president featured on everyday money for the first time. However, controversy quickly appeared because Brenner placed his initials VDB prominently on the reverse side at the bottom of the coin. Some critics argued the initials were too large and distracting, so the United States Mint removed them shortly after production began. This decision accidentally created one of the most famous and valuable coins in American numismatics, the 1909 SVDB Lincoln Wheat Penny struck in San Francisco. Because relatively few were produced before the initials were removed, the 1909 SVDB became one of the key dates of the entire Lincoln cent series. Today, collectors around the world search for this famous penny, and high-grade examples can sell for thousands of dollars. Another fascinating aspect of the Lincoln Wheat Penny involves its composition. Early wheat pennies were struck primarily from copper with a small amount of tin and zinc. These bronze coins developed the classic reddish-brown appearance collectors admire today. However, World War II later created major changes in American coinage production. During the war, copper became essential for military equipment and ammunition, forcing the government to conserve the metal for the war effort. As a result, the 1943 Lincoln cent was produced using zinc-coated steel instead of copper. These famous 1943 steel cents looked completely different from normal pennies because they appeared silver gray rather than brown or red. Millions of Americans were surprised by the unusual appearance of the steel cents, and many confused them with dimes because of their color. Although most 1943 steel pennies remain common today, rare errors accidentally struck in bronze became some of the most valuable coins in American history. A small number of leftover bronze planchets from 1942 were mistakenly used during production in 1943, creating the legendary 1943 bronze wheat penny. These coins later became world famous because of their rarity, and some examples sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction. Another major rarity appeared in 1944 when the mint returned to bronze production after the war. A few leftover steel planchets from 1943 were accidentally struck with 1944 dies, creating the rare 1944 steel cent. Like the 1943 bronze cent, these coins became legendary among collectors because of their extreme rarity and historical connection to wartime production changes. Mint marks also became extremely important within the Wheat Penny series. Coins struck in Philadelphia traditionally carried no mint mark, while Denver coins displayed a D and San Francisco issues carried an S. Certain years and mint combinations became highly collectible because of low mintages or strong collector demand. The famous 1914 D Wheat Penny became another major key date because relatively few were produced, while many surviving examples circulated heavily for decades. The 1922 No D Wheat penny also became extremely famous because some Denver coins were struck using worn dies that failed to display the D mint mark clearly. Collectors later realized these unusual pennies were highly valuable and difficult to find. Coin grading eventually became extremely important within wheat penny collecting. Professional grading companies carefully examined strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and color when assigning official grades. Since pennies circulated heavily in everyday commerce, high-grade examples with original red color became increasingly difficult to locate for many dates. Advanced collectors therefore compete strongly for pristine, full red, mint-state wheat pennies showing sharp details and minimal wear. Another exciting area within wheat penny collecting involves mint errors. During production, accidental mistakes occasionally created unusual pennies unlike standard issues. Double dies caused overlapping lettering and numbers, off-center strikes shifted the design away from the center, clipped planchets created curved missing sections along the edge, and wrong planchet errors produced dramatic differences in weight or appearance. Some rare wheat penny errors later sold for thousands of dollars because of their rarity and unusual designs. Over time, the Lincoln wheat penny became far more than just a 1-cent coin because it preserved the story of Abraham Lincoln, American history. As the Lincoln wheat penny continued circulating throughout the 20th century, it slowly became one of the most collected and admired coins in the history of the United States because collectors realized that hidden among ordinary pennies were rare dates, valuable mint errors, and historical treasures connected to some of the most important events in American history. Millions of Americans used wheat pennies every day for groceries, transportation, vending machines, newspapers, candy, and ordinary shopping, yet few people imagined that certain pennies would later become worth hundreds, thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. One of the biggest reasons the Lincoln wheat penny became so popular is its direct connection to Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected presidents in American history. Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War and his role in ending slavery made him a national symbol of unity, freedom, and perseverance. Because the Lincoln cent became the first regular circulating American coin to feature a real historical person rather than symbolic imagery, it represented a revolutionary change in American coin design. The portrait created by Victor David Brenner became so recognizable that generations of Americans instantly identified the coin simply by Lincoln's face. Another major reason collectors became fascinated with wheat pennies involves the famous key dates and low mintage issues within the series. The legendary 1909 SVDB penny struck in San Francisco became one of the most famous American coins ever produced because the designer's initials VDB were quickly removed after public criticism. Since only a limited number were minted before the change, the coin became extremely desirable among collectors. Even heavily circulated examples often sell for impressive amounts, while high-grade specimens can reach enormous auction prices. Another highly valuable wheat penny is the 1914 D struck in Denver. Because relatively few were produced and most circulated heavily for decades, finding a well-preserved example became extremely difficult. The 1922 No D wheat penny also became one of the most famous varieties in the series. These unusual coins were struck in Denver using worn dies that failed to display the D mint mark properly. Collectors later realized these rare varieties were highly valuable and extremely difficult to locate in strong condition. Another unforgettable chapter in wheat penny history came during World War II. Copper became critically important for wartime production because it was needed for ammunition, electrical equipment, and military supplies. To conserve copper for the war effort, the United States Mint changed penny composition in 1943 from bronze to zinc-coated steel. The famous 1943 steel cent immediately attracted public attention because it looked silver instead of copper brown. Many people confused the new pennies with dimes because of their color and shiny appearance. Although millions were produced, these steel cents later became important historical reminders of America's wartime sacrifices and industrial mobilization during World War II. However, the real excitement surrounding 1943 pennies involves the legendary bronze errors accidentally struck that year. A few leftover bronze planchets from 1942 remained inside minting equipment and were mistakenly used during 1943 production, creating the incredibly rare 1943 bronze wheat penny. These coins later became some of the most valuable pennies in the world because of their extreme rarity and historical significance. Some examples sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction, turning the 1943 bronze cent into one of the most famous era coins in American numismatics. Another major rarity appeared in 1944 after the mint returned to bronze composition. A few leftover steel planchets from 1943 accidentally received 1944 dies, creating the famous 1944 steel wheat penny. Like the 1943 bronze cent, these coins became legendary because they represent accidental transitional errors connected to wartime coin production. Mint marks also became extremely important in wheat penny collecting. Coins minted in Philadelphia traditionally carried no mint mark, while Denver coins displayed a D and San Francisco issues carried an S. Certain mint combinations later became highly valuable because of low mintages or strong collector demand. Coin grading eventually became one of the most important aspects of wheat penny collecting. Professional grading companies carefully examine strike quality, luster, surface preservation, and color before assigning official grades. Because pennies circulated heavily in everyday commerce, finding coins with sharp details and strong original red color became increasingly difficult for many dates. Advanced collectors therefore compete intensely for full red, mint-state wheat pennies showing exceptional preservation and minimal wear. Some top-graded examples later sold for astonishing prices at major auctions because of their rarity and beauty. Mint errors created another exciting world within wheat penny collecting. During production, accidental mistakes occasionally created unusual coins unlike standard issues. Double dies caused overlapping lettering or dates, off-center strikes shifted the design away from the center, clipped planchets left curved missing sections along the edge, and wrong planchet errors created dramatic differences in weight and appearance. One of the most famous wheat penny errors is the 1955 double die cent, where the date and lettering appear strongly doubled because of die alignment problems. These dramatic errors became legendary among collectors because they are visible even without magnification. Social media and YouTube videos later introduced millions of people worldwide to the excitement of wheat penny collecting. Videos discussing rare pennies worth money, hidden mint errors, and valuable key dates encouraged many beginners to search through old jars, inherited collections, and circulation coins hoping to discover hidden treasures. While many online claims are exaggerated, genuinely rare wheat pennies absolutely exist and continue attracting enormous collector demand worldwide. Auction houses regularly feature important wheat pennies where collectors compete for key dates, wartime errors, proof issues, and top-graded specimens. Yet beyond rarity and market value, the Lincoln wheat penny remains meaningful because it preserves the story of Abraham Lincoln, American history, wartime sacrifice, economic change. The lasting popularity of the Lincoln wheat penny continued growing across generations because this small copper coin became much more than simple 1-cent currency, preserving within its design the story of American history, presidential leadership, wartime sacrifice, economic survival, and one of the greatest coin collecting traditions in the United States. Even people who know very little about coin collecting can usually recognize the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front of the penny because the Lincoln cent became one of the most recognizable coins ever produced. For decades, wheat pennies circulated through nearly every part of American life. Children used them to buy candy, newspapers, and snacks. Workers carried them in their pockets during the Great Depression, soldiers handled them during World War II, and families stored them inside jars, piggy banks, and drawers without realizing that certain rare pennies would later become extremely valuable collector treasures. One of the biggest reasons wheat pennies remained so important involves their connection to Abraham Lincoln himself. Lincoln is remembered not only as America's 16th president, but also as the leader who guided the nation through the Civil War and preserved the Union during one of the darkest periods in American history. His role in ending slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation made him one of the most respected figures in American political history. When the Lincoln cent first appeared in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, it changed American coinage forever because it became the first regular circulating coin in the United States to feature the portrait of a real historical person instead of symbolic liberty imagery. The design created by Victor David Brenner eventually became one of the most famous coin portraits ever produced. The reverse design featuring 2 wheat stalks gave the coin its famous nickname, the Wheat Penny, while also symbolizing agriculture, growth, and prosperity in early 20th century America. Another major reason collectors became fascinated with wheat pennies involves the incredible rarity of certain dates and mint varieties hidden within the series. The legendary 1909 SVDB wheat penny struck in San Francisco became one of the most famous key dates in American numismatics because the designer's initials VDB were quickly removed after public criticism. Since only a limited number were minted before the change, the coin became extremely desirable among collectors. Even worn examples can sell for impressive amounts today, while pristine mint state specimens often command enormous auction prices. The 1914 D penny minted in Denver also became highly valuable because of its low mintage and the fact that most surviving examples circulated heavily for decades. The famous 1922 No D Wheat penny became another legendary variety after worn dies failed to properly display the Denver mint mark. Collectors later realized these unusual coins were extremely scarce and valuable. Yet perhaps the most famous wheat pennies of all are the wartime era coins connected to World War II. During the war, copper became critically important for military equipment, ammunition, and electrical systems. To conserve copper for the war effort, the United States Mint changed penny composition in 1943 from bronze to zinc-coated steel. These silver-colored steel cents shocked many Americans because they looked completely different from traditional copper pennies. However, a tiny number of bronze planchets accidentally remained inside mint machinery and were mistakenly struck with 1943 dies, creating the legendary 1943 bronze wheat penny. These rare errors later became some of the most valuable coins in American history because of their extreme rarity and historical significance. Some examples sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction, while rumors of hidden 1943 bronze pennies inspired generations of treasure hunters to search through old collections and pocket change. Another famous transitional error appeared in 1944 after the mint returned to bronze composition. A few leftover steel planchets from 1943 accidentally received 1944 dies, creating the rare 1944 steel cent. Like the 1943 bronze cent, these unusual coins became legendary among collectors because they represent accidental mistakes connected to wartime production changes. Coin grading eventually became one of the most important aspects of wheat penny collecting. Professional grading companies carefully examine strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and original color before assigning official grades. Because copper naturally darkens over time and pennies circulated heavily in commerce, high-grade, full red examples became extremely difficult to locate for many dates. Advanced collectors therefore compete intensely for pristine mint state wheat pennies displaying strong original color and sharp details. Some top-graded coins later sold for astonishing prices because of their rarity and visual beauty. Mint errors created another exciting world within wheat penny collecting. During production, accidental mistakes occasionally created unusual pennies unlike standard issues. Off-center strikes shifted the design away from the center, clipped planchets created curved missing sections along the edge, and double dies caused overlapping dates and lettering. One of the most famous examples is the 1955 double die wheat penny where the date and inscriptions appear dramatically doubled due to die alignment problems. These coins became legendary because the doubling is clearly visible even without magnification. Social media and YouTube later introduced millions of people worldwide to the excitement of wheat penny collecting. Videos discussing pennies worth money, rare mint errors, and hidden treasures encouraged countless people to examine inherited collections and old jars more carefully. While many exaggerated stories exist online, genuinely rare wheat pennies absolutely exist and continue attracting enormous collector demand around the world. Auction houses regularly feature important wheat pennies where collectors compete for rare dates, wartime errors, proof issues, and top-graded specimens. Yet beyond rarity and financial value, the Lincoln wheat penny remains meaningful because it preserves the story of Abraham Lincoln, American resilience, wartime sacrifice, economic hardship, and generations of ordinary life within one small coin recognized across the world. Thanks for watching.